This is an old city. Rome was already a teeming metropolis of over 1 million people when London and Paris were mere villages. But how do today's Romans live with 3,000 years of history right on their doorsteps? Today, the ancient ruins of the Roman Empire, and the mad jumble of the Middle Ages, and the holy mysteries of Catholic Rome coexist with the relatively new Rome, the capital of the Italian people. And to find out how this extraordinary layer cake works, I'm going to experience a typical 24 hours in the life of this city and its people.
Well, here we go. It's 6 in the morning. We're about to plunge into the most complicated, confusing and fascinating city that I've ever been in.
I've hitched a lift from a farmer. Food has been coming into Rome at the crack of dawn to sell at market for nearly 3,000 years. I'm on the original city commute. And what a city. On our way in, we happen to negotiate Rome's giant roundabout. The Colosseum was built to seat 50,000 people. That's 10 times London's Albert Hall, and it's 2,000 years old. It's a reminder that here the present is simply the extension of a very long past. But Rome is much more than a museum. By the time I jump off, it's 8 a.m. I'm in the Centro Storico, or historical centre, and every step I take seems to summon up someone else's life.
Apparently beneath my feet are the remains of the stables for the charioteers for the Circus Maximus. Behind me over there you can catch a glimpse of a palace built by Michelangelo. And I'm walking into the Campo dei Fiori, which was effectively used as sort of auditorium for torturing heretics.
Today, it's a market. The traders, the shoppers, passers-by and idlers in this place are the real link to the past. They've inherited the passion and the appetite of living here. They are the real spirit of Rome. But do they still possess that same ineffable superiority that helped create this once all-conquering bandit city? The modern Roman certainly drives as though he's in a chariot race. It's the rush hour. Rome is the most dangerous driving city in Europe. There were 21,000 serious collisions last year. That's nearly 60 a day. The Piazza Venezia is the hub of the modern city. In this chaotic whirlpool of crazed motorists and kamikaze pedestrians, I've come to witness a very Roman solution to the mess. The sublimely imperious figure of traffic policeman Gianluca Fabi. Here is Roman majesty, authority, and grace, and trumpets, and whistles. With a single outstretched hand, Gianluca can halt the most impatient driver. It's all done with what I'm going to discover is a very Roman sense of correctness, of being just so. After another faultless performance, Gianluca is relieved from the podium.
You are like a musical conductor.
Yes.
In the orchestra.
I'm very fond of music. Music.
Gianluca insists on showing me how he marshals his unruly orchestra.
The hand is, come dire, relaxed.
Yes.
Morbida. Relaxed. soft, sweet.
Yes, keep it
Sweet.
fluid.
Fluid.
Yes. And
No,
Yeah. Right. And
go slowly,
Yes. So if they're coming through, right,
Yes.
like this, but longer.
Stop. Okay.
It's got to have the slight lift, just to make a little bit of a.
Open hand. Okay.
Okay. All right. Not bad. Is that okay?
Okay.
I'd quite like to take Gianluca's place on that podium, but I think I'd only add to the collision statistics. Here, it's not difficult to understand that there are more cars per person in Rome than there are in any other city in the world. Over in the far corner of the piazza, they're trying to control this addiction by building a third metro line. Rome's underground metro opened in 1955, and so far it's only managed 2 lines. The reason is because whenever they dig down, things turn up. Buried layers of ancient Roman streets. They wanted a station, and they found an archaeological site. These modern-looking walls are actually 2,000 years old.
It was an auditorium.
The metro tunnel is already down there somewhere. The problem is getting to it. 30 stations are planned. 10 of them have been halted by major finds like this one.
This is a base of a statue.
As far as archaeologist Giovanni Ricci is concerned, the metro will have to wait. What's down here is far more impressive than what's on the surface, and Giovanni is like a little boy in a sweet shop.
Just come through here. This is very good. This is great. Look at this. Look. Imagine if you were just digging around and you suddenly found this. This is the original floor, the original Roman floor, marble floor. And if you carried on digging, which you don't plan to, underneath the oratorio, then just more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
It's endless. So, could I take a piece of this home?
No. If you do,
Yeah.
maybe you go to a little holiday.
So the Romans want their new metro system, but they also want to preserve their fantastic ancient artifacts. And when they discover things, it's not like we do in Britain, a sort of couple of old bricks, you know, Tony Robinson has an orgasm. It's nothing like that. They discover a vast complex of buildings and steps, bits of marble, pottery, monuments, you name it. It's just an archaeologist's dream.
Even if it's a nightmare for the metro builders. And in the meantime, the madness keeps growing. Because a little madness is part of the Roman way. It's called furbo. I need breakfast. This is where the real Romans go. They're mad about coffee, too.
Could I have a double espresso?
Double espresso.
The counter is always crowded because the coffee is not just good, it's served correctly.
This is an essential pit stop in the Roman day. And you drink your coffee standing up. It's not a lingering drink, so it's not for hanging around with your computer. There are absolutely no seats whatsoever.
This demanding, almost severe ritual is duplicated in 1,000 bars across the city. Romans wanted so, and just so. Coffee was originally seen as Satan's drink. The Pope frowned on it until he tried it. Now it's one of the essential pillars of the city. Coffee any other way would be a sin.
I'm rather conscious that I've lingered over my coffee perhaps a little too long. At least 3 people who are standing here have had coffee and gone, and I'm supposed to be in a hurry.
I better get on my way.
Grazie.
I have an appointment with a man who's going to show me Rome's plumbing. It's 11 in the morning and already 30 degrees. Thankfully, in Rome, there seems to be a fountain on every street corner. Cool, clear water, even though drinking it is an acquired skill. Rome was born in a gorge on a river, the Tiber. which once provided all the water that was needed, until Rome got huge and the river became too polluted to use. The solution was to pipe in water from distant sources. The provision of this water became synonymous with power. Its abundance is celebrated with the spurting and gushing of more than 1,000 public fountains. As one writer put it, the Greeks may have had their arts and their philosophy and their plays, but we Romans had 11 aqueducts. And some are still in working order. As always, the real business of Rome takes place behind closed doors. And underground explorer Adriano Morabito has the keys. This spiral staircase is 18th century, but the Aqua Vergine below was built 19 years before the birth of Christ.
How do I do this? Sit down, jump.
Jump in.
A lot of room.
It was blocked when the empire fell, but as Rome rose again, 1,000 years later, it was brought back into use and it still flows.
It is. I mean, it's an incredible piece of engineering, isn't it? Given that they were working without motorized machines of any kind.
And only by looking at these things and exploring these, you understand what was the peak that was reached by the Romans and the Roman Empire.
Along with the other 10 aqueducts, the walls of the Aqua Vergine were made watertight with a form of concrete invented by the Romans. When it came to repair them centuries later, the technology to make this concrete had been lost, and other ways of sealing them had to be found. The Aqua Vergine carries water 21 kilometers from the hills above Rome all the way to the very center of the city.
So, where are we now?
We are now in the final chamber of the Virgin Aqueduct in the center of Rome.
But something outside has caught my eye. All the great aqueducts end their journey with a mostra, a show of some kind. And now I want to see what's on the other side of this wall. Well, there we are. It's the Trevi Fountain.
3 coins in the fountain.
Paying a tribute to the water is actually as old as Rome's 7 hills. They once threw 6 nice, clean old men into the river. That became a coin in a fountain, and now, thanks to Hollywood, 3 coins. Today, the fountain is awash with money. I've arrived as the water board is on one of its regular clean-ups. The ancient Romans were right. Water is wealth, and they're cashing up.
It reminds me of Las Vegas. It makes about 80,000 euros a month.
And the lucky winner is the Italian Red Cross.
Central Rome is like a sort of chaotically arranged antique shop. It's full of treasures, but it's very, very confusing. It's easy to get completely lost.
And getting lost is one of the best things you can do. Within minutes, I stumble across the Via de Cestari, a whole street of shops you can only find in Rome, catering for a very specific type of customer.
If you're a chap in the Catholic Church, then you're encouraged to dress up. But if you're a woman, then something sober is obviously called for. Oh, that's great. Look at that. That's everything for a portable mass here, so that you can go off and minister wherever you are in the world and carry it in a little suitcase. If you've ever wondered what a priest carries in that briefcase, this may be the answer. This one, the deluxe version, even has 2 battery-operated candles.
Once they've done their shopping, this is where all the nuns, priests and bishops are probably heading. The Vatican City is the headquarters of the Catholic church and is technically now the smallest country in the world, but it has shrunk to that status. Until 1870, the Pope governed half of Italy. As ruling head of state, he organised every part of the city of Rome for over 1,000 years. From the late 16th century, the popes rebuilt large areas of the metropolis in an architectural style known as the Baroque, a sort of religious, theatrical showmanship in frozen stone. In time, they also straightened the streets, cut out new piazzas, and even introduced gas lighting. The Catholic Church still underpins this city like wires in a corset. It even sets the time.
I'm on the Janiculum Hill now with what must be the most perfect view of Rome, but I'm not actually here to see that. I'm here to see the monster. And apparently he's due to come out any second.
The monster is a howitzer cannon. In ancient Rome, a day lasted 12 hours, regardless of how long daylight lasted. When the popes came along, they too wanted to be the timekeeper, so they set the clock. The army still carry out their edict. And that's midday, according to the Vatican. This practice of issuing a daily time check goes back to 1847, when Pope Pio IX decided Christianity needed to be synchronized. Having broadcast the time to the city, this is the sound of Rome's 900 or so churches responding. But at this church, time stands still. Santi Quattro Coronati is truly a secret side of Rome. It's home to a contemplative order of Augustinian nuns. And these are the final moments of their midday mass. Aside from prayer and worship, these nuns spend their lives in complete and utter silence. This is the mysterious and otherworldly side of the Roman Catholic presence.
I think that what I've just experienced there is something very close to the soul of Rome. Very, very beautiful. Very, very old in its tradition. And witnessed, well, by just me and one other person at the back of the church.
With the service over, silence returns. And now I'm going deeper into this secret world. The heart of this church is a medieval cloister, and Sister Marilena has been allowed to suspend her vow of silence to talk with me. I actually don't understand much of what she's saying, but this doesn't seem to stop her. For someone who spends her life in silence, she certainly enjoys talking. There are 28 closed orders of nuns in Rome. They're an essential part of a city they seldom see and that rarely sees them. Marilena explains that the cloister is somewhere for the contemplative to walk and to think, to glimpse sunlight and nature. But most of all, it's a window up to heaven, where the sisters' thoughts and prayers should be constantly directed. Except, that is, when they're enjoying a good old chat.
Questa ti dà la gioia, la felicità, superare il dolore e la sofferenza, tutto
On a more worldly note, it's time for lunch. All over the city, cafes and restaurants are getting ready, but I shan't be joining them because I'm going to cook my own. This is Testaccio, one of the finest fresh food markets in the whole of Rome.
is a very nice, beautiful.
Cooking coach Daniela Del Bozo has been shopping here for years.
And this is ovolo. This is the best one.
We're going to cook a typical Roman lunch, and Daniela's going to make sure we get our hands on first-rate ingredients.
Ciao, grazie. Yeah,
The centerpiece of our meal is going to be offal,
buongiorno.
the leftover entrails and internal organs of a butchered animal that in Britain would end up in some sort of pasty or sausage.
This is the oxtail of the beef. And
Traditionally, this was the food of the poor. But here in Rome, offal is highly valued in its own right.
This is the interior of the baby veal, the intestine, which is still full of milk. Let's say 2 months baby veal, very small, so it's a pity. Anyway, Roman people, they eat it.
There's no attempt to soften the reality of what we're buying here. Quite the reverse. The freshness of this corotella, that's the heart, lungs and liver of this young lamb, is, well, undeniable. With our shopping bag full, Daniela suggests we cook lunch in the nearby apartment of her friend, Marcella. Well-prepared offal is more than a favourite. It's correct, a proper Roman meal. And Marcella Staracci knows exactly how it should be done. Her family has run a restaurant in Testaccio for generations.
Bene.
That's the liver, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We bothered about the arteries running through it, or...
Sì.
We're having that as well? Obviously. We're not going to eat that. A bit looks like something out of the Alien.
Ma
We
quello è
are.
il cuore pure, no? It's a baby.
The baby veal stomach is so tender and fresh, it needs only to be shown the frying pan, and already it's cooked.
Animelle, proprio romano, proprio.
Yeah, it's really Roman. This is really Roman.
Buon appetito.
Appetito.
Buon appetito.
Buon appetito.
How you like it?
Very delicious. It's absolutely delicious. And in the restaurant that the family runs, people still eat, are fond of eating offal and food that we never see in restaurants in London at all. Really.
No, now they still have this, the typical trattoria she has. They just do this kind of food.
I hope I passed the test. When in Rome, eat as the Romans do.
You know what I need after this, Daniela?
What do you need after this?
I need a good long sleep in the heat of the day.
It's after lunch that Rome reveals itself as a true southern city. For some, a siesta is the only way to get through the day.
In the middle of the afternoon, the heat goes steadily clambering up. It's trying to get above 40 degrees today. And there's still a stampede of tourists charging up and down between the major sites, but the rest of Rome just shuts up shop.
No siesta for me, though. My path is going to take me to the middle of the modern city. And the greatest survivor of the Roman age, the Pantheon. Built as a temple to all the ancient gods, it boasted the largest unsupported dome in the world for over a millennium. But what's always fascinated me is something much smaller, a little decorative detail at the back of the building. These sublime marble carvings known as egg and dart.
You don't have to be an expert to stand in awe of the capabilities of the Romans. Each of the eggs on that cornice is so deep. It's carved right in. Imagine doing that not just once, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times without making a mistake.
Rome is still a city of craftsmen, and I've come to see two of the best.
Daniele? Buongiorno, buongiorno.
The De Tomasi family have been running their marble studio for generations.
Godfredi and Daniele are going to let me loose on a bit of work to see if I can see how difficult it is. I'm their latest apprentice.
I'm going to help Daniele finish off a classic frieze of egg and dart. And I mean finish off in the best sense of the word. I've always wanted to try this, but it's only when you have a go that you realise how incredibly difficult carving marble actually is.
Okay, now can you tell which one I did? See, I quite like that. There's one with character there. Perhaps a little bit more rough-hewn than the others, but you can see the character of the person who's working on that.
The elemental symbolism behind the egg of life and the dart of death takes you back to the very origins of Rome. This was a city, not a country, a fighting town that took over the rest of the world, and its rulers knew it. That's why they built massive show-off theatres, huge circuses, and ever bigger temples on their home patch. Ostentatious decoration is deep in the soul of Rome. Every later ruler envied those emperors, and the last major figure to do so was fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Like those before him, Mussolini wanted to impose his own personality on this city. Begun in 1935, Esposizione Universale Roma, or EUR, was Mussolini's attempt to emulate the grandeur and dignity of ancient Rome some 8 kilometres to the south. If you look hard enough, you can spot direct references to the ancient city. The floating roof of the Palazzo dei Congressi is a nod to the Pantheon's famous dome. And the Palazzo della Civiltà Italiana is more commonly known as the Square Colosseum, for obvious reasons. Unlike the original, though, the name of EUR's creator, Benito Mussolini, fits the number of columns and stories precisely. This was no accident. I've joined Stefano Ambrosi, who's come to photograph some of the recent restorations to the buildings.
Mussolini loved the idea of having the empire back,
So
like in good old times.
He wanted to make the big imperial statement. As far as he was concerned, ancient Rome should never have gone away.
Absolutely.
But Mussolini fell from grace before his fantasy Rome was ever completed. And like so many before him who tried to clean up this city, Mussolini came to a sticky end. Back in the ancient Forum, it's 4 p.m. Mussolini wanted to tidy up this place too. He ran a road through the middle of it to try and restore its grandeur. Except that it was never that ordered to begin with. Even at its height, 2,000 years ago, Rome was already full of the ruins and detritus of 500 years of history. At that point, along came someone with plans to control the traffic and rebuild derelict buildings. What happened next is quite a famous story.
About 2,053 years ago, on the morning of the 15th of March, 44 BC, a man left his new house just over there on the other side of the Forum and got into a litter because he was feeling slightly unwell and was carried along here to his death. His name was Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar was due to appear at the Senate that day, but was tricked into stopping off here at the Theatre of Pompey, now a permanent archaeological site in the middle of the bustling city. Within the hour, he would be dead.
So this giant wall here was the back of an enormous theatre. And it was right in here that Caesar was assassinated. Shakespeare got it wrong. He wasn't killed in the Forum. He was killed here at a meeting of the Senate One of the reasons that they assassinated Julius Caesar was not just that he wanted to make himself dictator, but when he was dictator, he intended to tidy up this city. And anybody who wants to sort out Rome,
now, 2,000 years later, most of central Rome is a World Heritage Site, which means it's even more encumbered by the weight of its history. Today, Rome is run by the mayor from his impressive offices in the Piazza del Campidoglio. I want to ask the mayor how you go about running a city like Rome today without getting assassinated. His aides believe there's a chance he might see me after his 5 o'clock meeting, and they show me straight in. There he is, Mayor Gianni Alemanno. Caesar in a flannel suit he's not. Alemanno is from the right end of the political spectrum and famously got elected for promising to tear down one of Rome's rare modern buildings.
This is Mr. Griff.
He's apparently more likely to uphold the status quo than challenge it.
in the past, many people, starting with Julius Caesar, have thought, I can tidy up Rome. I can organize Rome. Is that a good idea?
Allora, è sicuramente un grande problema, nel senso che questa è la città più complessa del mondo.
It is a problem. It is actually the most complicated city in the world.
È come se il passato di Roma crea problemi.
He's right, of course, as I've seen everywhere. Rome's past is creating problems for the city, but it's also the glue that holds the place together. Unlike Caesar, I suspect Gianni Alemanno probably has every chance of surviving his tenure in power.
That was quite intriguing, actually, because it was just like going into any political meeting house. There were a lot of aides standing around with phones and everybody watching very intently, but they were just a little bit better dressed than you get anywhere else.
Mayor Gianni may outdress even New Labour, but he's shown me an essential political truth about Rome. Here, politics, just like policing the traffic or building the fountains, is as much about style as anything else. To find out what lies beneath, I must visit the Oracle. Rosalina Delaggio runs the only female shoeshine in the whole of Rome, if not the world. She claims to polish the most powerful men in Italy. And given that her shop is next door to the presidential palace, I'm sure it's true.
And what are you using there? What is that stuff?
It's a secret.
Okay. Well, I'm not as attractive as Rosalina, but by taking the left shoe, I'm hoping it'll give her the opportunity to chat and maybe be a little indiscreet.
And do you talk with your client about his worries and his concerns and his day? And so you are also a mama to your clients, are you?
No, the daughter.
They prefer daughter, do they? They're the papa. Yeah, I see. Do you hear secrets?
Many secrets.
Many secrets?
Yes.
So, it must all remain a secret, even the recipe for shoe polish.
This is definitely shinier.
A little bit.
Rome is a deeply conservative city, and you can't easily infiltrate its traditions. I do know, though, that where I'm going next, shiny shoes count for nothing. It may not look like it, it certainly doesn't smell like it, but I'm still in Rome. I'm less than 5 kilometers from the Colosseum, and I'm here for the sheep's version of the 6 o'clock commute.
With joggers passing by.
After the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD, the population of this town plummeted from over 1 million to just 20,000 people. During the medieval era, cows grazed in the Forum. Vast tracts close to the city became established as agricultural land. To this day, farms like this one at Caffarella Park infuse the city with a rustic feel.
Nearly 40% of the municipality of Rome is actually proper farming land. I mean, I don't just think like city farms for kids to go along and hug a sheep. I mean, actual farm.
And now we've got to get on with milking this farm's 1,200 sheep.
Now the whole thing comes back. The whole thing comes back. They have to walk back. Okay.
Getting the suckers onto the right bit of the sheep seems to be the major challenge.
Okay. Okay. Oh no! I missed. Oh, is that okay?
The sheep provide around 400 litres of milk a day, and the Riccioni family turn it all into delicious pecorino cheese. It's not a gimmick. The cheese is so good, it's all sold locally, just as it would have been 500 years ago.
It is very delicious. Very lovely.
Before I leave, I'm introduced to an old Roman gesture by Mama. It simply means delicious. In the centre of the city, it's 7:30 in the evening, and the working day has come to an end. La passeggiata is the Italian tradition of dressing up and taking a long, slow walk through your town. Having someone to gossip with is an essential part of the process, and I've met up with Cecilia Martini.
This time of night, people come out, it's cool again, and they like to walk around.
Yes, that's the pleasure at the end of the day.
It's a question of seeing people.
Yes, seeing places and people as well. You're going to
I want Cecilia to tell me about the Romans.
We are more stylish, I think.
But you like things to be just so.
Yes, as they have to be.
In what area? So if I had a coffee just now, you said, you mustn't have a cappuccino.
No, it's too late. Cappuccino is milk. Milk is for breakfast.
I see.
You would never order a cappuccino after a meal or in the middle of the afternoon. If you do it, you're not a Roman.
You're not a Roman?
No.
Okay. You are a Roman yourself?
Yes. Okay. Almost.
Almost? What do you mean by that?
Because my father is Roman from 7 generations. That makes a true Roman.
So you have to be, in order to be a proper Roman,
yes,
7 generations of living in Rome.
Exactly.
And now you're no longer 7 generations?
No, because my mom is from Tuscany.
When you walk, you tell me if
I leave Cecilia and her tainted Roman blood and carry on upriver. I got a date with another lady, and this one has got to be dressed just so, too.
I think this is who or what I've come to meet. This is the Madonna dei Noiantri. And in a very short time, after she's been dressed properly, they're going to take her to meet Rome and the people of Rome, and I'm going with them.
But to do so, I must become a temporary member of the local Masons, as they are the Madonna's official couriers. "500 years ago, the Madonna was discovered inside a wooden box washed up on the shores of the Tiber. The fishermen who found her took this to be a miracle, and from that moment on, the statue has been honoured every year with a ritual procession. As we get further downstream, it becomes clear how big and important an event this really is. The crowds get larger, the shouts of Viva Maria get louder, and ever more flowers are tossed into the water. By the time we reach Trastevere, it looks like the whole of Rome is looking down on us. We pause for a moment, seemingly to wait for the sun to set on this superb city. We've arrived on dry land. Now it's time to take the Madonna back to her people here in Trastevere. Because of the extreme weight of the Madonna, there are two separate teams of us, and we take it in turns to carry her through this quarter's ancient streets.
When the bell rings, we stop and the brothers change over to give each other a rest. Whoops, we're ringing and carrying on.
Even more striking than the spectacle of it all is the emotion on people's faces as the Madonna passes them by.
People step forward as you're holding the Madonna and come forward to touch the hem of her garment.
2 hours after starting our journey down the Tiber, we arrive at our destination, the Church of Santa Maria in Trastevere. Outside, fireworks salute the Madonna's arrival, and all the citizens of Rome seem to be celebrating the moment. Back inside, after a few prayers and some team photos, we're all allowed to resume our lives.
We ended here in one of the most beautiful, one of the oldest churches in Rome, in order to take part in something which was, in its own way, miraculous and extraordinary because of the strength of belief that you find here amongst the people who take part in it.
It's after 11. And the streets are packed with revelers. A night out starts much later here, but then, for many, doesn't stop until dawn. There are over 100 cinemas in the home of La Dolce Vita, but many of them aren't air-conditioned. So in the summer, cinema moves outdoors. One of the coolest is here on Tiber Island, right in the middle of the city. I've come to help projectionist Pietro Mocchi prepare for tonight's screening.
Reminds me of doing my father's shows in my house, you know, when I was a kid.
Well, it's 11:30, time to start up the projector. But the film will have a tough job competing with all the spectacle around me. In the middle of the night, Rome is wide awake. It won't start calming down until around 2 in the morning. And then I can finally experience one of the most quintessential of all Roman pastime. I'm going on a late-night scooter ride with the Vespa Club of Rome.
Ciao! Flavio!
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Okay, fine, thank you. This is on my group.
This is...
Yes.
The club!
Roma, the club.
How beautiful! Salute! Avanti!
Avanti!
When, in 1946, company owner Enrico Piaggio first clapped eyes on his newly designed vehicle, he cried, "Sembra una Vespa!" It looks like a wasp. 60 years and 16 million Vespas later, it's still the best way of getting around this city. Now I've got the hang of it, I want to ask club rider Flavio Fina what it is about the Vespa that makes it so special.
You see, it's one piece only of steel. Only one piece. It's not many parts. And that makes the Vespa unique in the world.
The night in Rome is drawing to a close. There's time for a final ride past the city's great landmarks before making my way out past the colossal overground aqueducts where we started just 24 hours ago.
You know, other Italians say that Romans are arrogant, aloof. They say they moan a lot and they've always seen everything before. But I just love the way they talk. I love the way they care about their city and all their traditions. I love Rome. I think you could live here for 10 years and still only scratch the surface of this eternally fascinating town. Well, that's 24 hours.